Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Legal Talk with WedLawk. I am your host, attorney Emily E.G. Bradford. And in today's episode, we're diving into a crucial topic for entrepreneurs and business owners. So today's question comes from Victor Brew. He is an actor and producer based in Los Angeles, California. Victor asked, how do I set up a holding company for my multiple businesses? This is a great question and one that we see often. But before we dive into the answer to that, please note that this episode does assume that you have a basic understanding of what a holding company is, its purpose, and as it relates to what we're talking about today, note that we are talking about a pure holding company and one that is not registered on the stock exchange, because those do require additional notice requirements and things like that under the Securities and Exchange Act. But nevertheless, pure holding company that is not registered on the stock exchange. How do we set that up for our multiple businesses? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to select a unique business name for your holding company. It doesn't need to be, or it should not mirror that of your operating company, okay? So if you have an operating company that's called WedLawk, the holding company doesn't need to be WedLawk Holding, right? It needs to be something that is a little bit more discreet than that. Following the selection of your discrete name, you're going to want to choose your entity type. Is this going to be a corporation? Is it going to be an LLC, a limited partnership? Once you have that established, then you should select your jurisdiction for incorporation. Now, note that your holding company does not have to be registered in the state in which your subsidiaries are operating, okay? And people often do register their holding companies in other states and sometimes offshores, okay, depending on, your business's objectives, right? But nevertheless, you want to select a jurisdiction that offers favorable tax laws, legal protections, and reasonable filing fees. So for instance, Wyoming is popular for LLCs because its privacy protection laws and its low state filing fees. Whereas Delaware is more favorable for corporations because of the legal protections that it offers for the businesses. So now that we have our name, the entity type, the next thing you'll need and select the proper jurisdiction, the next thing you'll want to do is go to the Secretary of State site, figure out how you need to actually register this business with that state, okay? So you'll complete all the necessary paperwork, you're going to file and register it. Once you have it registered, the most important step is ensuring that your books and records reflect this new change of ownership. So you've got to go back, or at least for the holding company, you've got to create your governing documents. If it's, a corporation, it's going to be your bylaws and your resolutions. If it's an LLC, it's going to be your operating agreement. You're also, another thing that people don't understand for governing documents is that at a minimum, let's say LLC, you need an operating agreement, you need a transfer ledger that shows how the business has now transferred ownership over to you for whatever your capital contributions were. And then you also need a membership interest certificate that is certifying, it's your certificate that you own this percentage in this business. So nevertheless, you prepare your governing documents for your holding company. Once you've prepared those documents, you need to go to each of your subsidiary companies, and you're going to need to amend those documents to reflect the change of ownership as well. So you're going to want to update the list of owners and capital contributions. That's usually on a schedule, okay? Conduct a board meeting or draft a resolution officially adding the holding company as a new owner. Then you're going to make sure it's reflected on the transfer ledger, the date that it was transferred, what the capital contribution was for the holding company to buy into this. And then you'll want to issue the holding company a membership certificate. Outside of that, you will need to go and amend, depending on what state you're in, you'll also want to go amend your filings with the Secretary of State to show who, depending on the type of LLC, is it manager managed or member managed. you'll want to update those documents to reflect that as well. And then a couple of other things, if you're trying to move over assets to the holding company, you're going to have to facilitate, the transfer of those assets to the holding company. And you generally do that through various types of written agreements. Bear in mind that, just filing it is not enough. Like, your books and records should match for both of the companies. And so that's why it's essential for you all to understand what your governing documents are, how they work, how they should be amended to reflect the change of ownership. And then last, you'll want to obtain an EIN for the holding company for tax purposes. So I hope that answers your question. Vic, thank you so much for submitting to the Lawkbox. If there are any other business owners or leaders that have legal questions, we encourage you to visit wedlawk.com/legal talk and submit your questions there. We will resume our legal talk with WedLawk times the Lawkbox next year. But in the meantime, you can catch all of our full episodes on our YouTube channel at LTWWL. Thank you for tuning in, and happy holidays to all of our listeners.